Enemy behavior can be one of the most difficult parts of game development, and it's often referred to as enemy AI, even if the behavior is as simple as moving from right to left across the screen. Throughout my game development journey, I have made many sets of rules for enemy behaviors and got used to calling it enemy AI, but I have never actually used a neural network for enemy behavior. In fact, I have never had any experience working at all practically with neural networks. I decided to make a game for the sole purpose of training machine learning agents to play it and see if they could beat me at my own game. I created a prototype for a game called Orbital, a 2D arena sports game similar to soccer or hockey with rules that I thought were simple enough for the agents to learn in a reasonable amount of time. Here's a demonstration of the tutorial, which should give you an idea of the controls the agents are working with. They can move around and will collect the ball when they run into it, and it will then be in their orbit. They can increase the speed of the orbit and also change the direction. And if you haven't noticed, there's a sort of 2D gravity effect, where the ball will move based on the player locations and eventually will get pulled into one of the orbits. Hopefully you can see the type of game I'm trying to create and perhaps can visualize what it might look like if a player were very good at the game. Now let's see if we can bring that behavior to life. For this project, I'm using Unity's ML agents with Conda and PyTorch to train the neural network. I got these tools all set up and started experimenting with how many environments I could run and at what speed. This is a technique called parallel training and can greatly improve the training speed and consistency. At this point, I started seriously asking the question, what would a competitive game actually look like? I have an idea in my head loosely based on soccer and hockey and other video games, but there are enough unique mechanics here, especially the gravity, to say that I have no idea what the specific behaviors are that I'm looking for. So it's hard to judge their play style, especially since they're only learning by playing against another version of themselves. When I play against these models, it's very clear that they are not learning any strategies that would actually help them play effectively against a human, but I decided to let them train overnight to see if they would eventually figure out. And it turns out, yeah, that's not going to work. This is when I learned about curriculum training, a technique that mimics human education by training models on examples of increasing difficulty. First, I started with a single player in an arena with huge goals. He gets rewarded if the ball goes in the pink goal, and he gets punished if the ball goes in the blue goal. This way, it should clearly learn to get the ball to the right in order to win. Over time, we can see it starting to learn to score more frequently. One thing I noticed is that it's never holding on to the ball, so I wanted to incentivize that. I want to note that this is my first time training machine learning agents, so I just want to say that I had no idea what I was doing here, but this was my thought process. So after I incentivized that, it ended up holding onto the ball for too long, so I abandoned that idea and started setting up a 1v1. After training for a while, I got the same behavior as my original 2v2 training. After looking into it, I was able to figure out that since the agent gets a reward for collecting the ball, it figured out that it can keep getting rewarded by staying in the corner and passing to itself. It won't do this in the solo arena, but when it has an opponent and experiences a bit of trouble trying to score goals, sitting in the corner and passing to itself wins out in the long run. I started trying to teach it that scoring goals was more fun than sitting in the corner, but I accidentally incentivized hanging around the middle of the arena. Although the ball spawns randomly at the start of each training episode, it was spawning in the middle after each goal, so the agent learned to stay around the middle and score right after the ball respawns. I did a couple other stupid things, like using this static player to try to teach the agent to steal the ball. That definitely didn't work. At a certain point, I decided I learned enough about this process and I wanted to completely restart and try training a new agent. This time, I decided to create two different neural networks, one for blue and one for pink players. I had them both do the solo curriculum training and then had them play against each other. This was my most promising result so far, so I felt like I was on the right track with using the separate networks for blue and pink. Next, I had the blue network train against the current pink agent until blue was clearly scoring more frequently than pink. Then I trained pink, hoping it would catch up. After training for several hours, I noticed that pink was hanging around the middle because blue had gotten so good at pressuring him and scoring that it basically gave up playing defense entirely. It just waits around the middle for the ball to spawn in a place where it can have an uncontested goal. My only hope was to let it train for a while and see if it masters this cherry-picking strategy and then eventually learns to start playing defense again. Thankfully, after somewhere around 15 hours of letting my Mac nearly explode, pink learned to play defense again. For the sake of this video, this is the final model I was able to produce. It's a bit underwhelming to me since I really got my hopes up as I started to train these models, but I wasn't really sure what to expect at the end of the day when I started this project, and this was one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on, so it was overall a success. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you for watching. I hope this was entertaining and maybe useful in some way. In terms of future development, I definitely plan on releasing the game as soon as I can get an enemy behavior to a point where the game is fun to play. And to do that, I will need to learn more about how self-play models work and train. This is actually the strategy I was doing in the very beginning to train the 2v2, but it wasn't working, so I'm going to need to give this another try. I have actually begun working on this already, but I don't have anything exciting to share just yet. I'll create another video when I do. Thank you again for watching.